Welcome back. In this video we're going to do a quick review of this 2019 Toro PowerMax 824OE. And if you saw some of my previous videos, I did a tongue-in-cheek video of a mid-90s Murray snowblower that I originally purchased used to take care of this property that I bought. And I very quickly found that that machine was so woefully underbuilt and, served its purpose for its 20-year life, or 22 years of existence, but it was beyond all hope. So I got rid of it and I bought this. Decided that if I buy a brand new machine and I just take care of it, I'll get many, many years of use out of it. And that's kind of what I'm hoping. So I bought the Toro PowerMax after kind of looking over what was available to me for under $1,000, which is what I didn't want to spend more than $1,000. I have a very small piece of land here, a small driveway, and it's really all the snowblower I need. In fact, I even considered a single stage paddle style snowblower. I never considered an electric machine because experience has taught me that electric is nice if you are guaranteed to not have a power outage when there's a giant snowstorm, but I digress. So anyway, I bought this machine after looking over what was available. Generally for under $1,000, you're going to get a choice between a Toro, an Aaron's, or one of the many iterations of MTD's snowblower series, which are sold under a variety of brands, including, actually, I think even Husqvarna makes a machine that's not related to MTD, but I'm not positive on that one. But when you're looking at big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, you pretty much have a choice between Troy-Bilt, which is MTD, Toro, which is made by Toro, Aaron's, which is made by Aaron's, of course, and Husqvarna. Now, Craftsman are also made by MTD. And what I found after looking over what was on the floor, in terms of overall build quality, some of the worst ones I saw were actually the Craftsman MTDs and the Troy-Bilts, which are basically the same machine. And after speaking to a friend of mine who does small engine repair and yard equipment repair, he found that the gearboxes on those machines are woefully underbuilt. They tend to strip out over time. Rather than being lubricated with gear oil, they're lubricated with a thick grease, which in and of itself isn't really a bad thing. It's just when they break, it's usually at the worst possible time. They also depend heavily on shear pins to prevent driveline damage. What struck me as odd was Toro's lack of use of shear pins. Toro does not use shear pins in their drivelines. What they do is they overbuild the driveline with the expectation that if something were to jam the machine up, it would simply stall the engine. You would clear the jam and continue on going. One real-life example of how this can be bad, or how the shear pins, although a good idea, can lead to major frustration, is when my father bought an MTD-built Cub Cadet tractor. See, Cub Cadet is also an MTD product, including their tractors. And his has the large, I think they call it a 3-stage snowblower. And every time it snows, he probably burns through about 5 or 6 shear pins, and I'm not even lying. And he's got a very small piece of land, about the same size as mine. He just wants the convenience of being able to hop into a cab and clear his snow that way. But in his case, he is constantly breaking shear pins in that thing. And so I did my research, and I found that Toro's machines have been doing this shear pin free design for quite some time and haven't really had any issues that I've been able to find. There's always anecdotal evidence, but so I bought this machine, the 824OE. This is the newer version of the 824. The previous generation had a plastic chute, and the 2019 model has the steel chute. But they both have a plastic impeller housing. It's a thermoresin. From what I understand, they don't break like you would think. I mean, and even if it did break, it's about $100 part. I mean, nothing's perfect. You know, no matter what you buy, there's going to be a failure point. And I think for this machine, that will be it. I also bought the optional drift breakers. I have them in the retracted position because I don't really need them right now, but I decided to buy them just to have them in case I need them. Now, I've been using snowblowers almost my entire life. I think I started using snowblowers at my parents' house when I was about 10. And back in the day, I was probably about 11 or so. And back then, we had a 1965 Gilson. So I have used the best. Gilson, they made the best machines. Unfortunately, they built themselves out of business. And I think they were bought up by somebody else. And they were built too well. They were built incredibly well. And that 65 Gilson that I used way back in the late 90s is still running to this day. I believe it's still running on the original 8-horse Briggs motor with the updraft carburetor. That machine was a tank and a half. And, but where its weakness was heavy, wet snow. What would happen is the machine would bog down. I mean, it was geared so low that it just didn't have the throwing power. But it was an unstoppable freight train. You could use it as a freaking plow. I mean, while the snowblower and auger housing could be completely clogged with slush, the thing would still plow through. I mean, you could just push the snow out of the way. And it was strong as an ox, but slow as slow can be. And where some of the newer machines kind of improve upon that design is they're much faster. This machine, because of its plastic impeller housing, there's actually a side benefit to that. The plastic impeller housing will never rust. It will never corrode, which corrosion creates restriction. So as the machine gets older and you start having rust build up in there, it'll still work. It just won't throw snow like you're used to it throwing, and it'll clog more often. In this case, if it ever cracks, you just bolt on a new piece and you continue moving on. But that old Gilson, it was strong, it was reliable, surprisingly reliable, but it kept clogging. Another thing that newer machines feature that isn't really a feature, it's just a way they're built. The steel is much thinner than it used to be back in the old days. I actually almost bought a used Simplicity from, it was probably from the late 80s, and it was built very well, almost as well as the Gilson I had. The reason I did not buy that machine was it was just too big. It was this is a 24-inch, this was a 28-inch. And I'm like, I have very little garage space as it is. I don't need a machine that size. But I didn't buy it. I also needed engine work, and I just want to buy one machine and take care of it until the day I die. It's kind of, in New England, snowblowers can usually last about 20 to 25 years, it seems, if cared for. But that's just been my experience. So anyway, moving on. So Toro no longer uses, at least on these consumer machines, they don't use Briggs motors anymore. They don't use... Tecumseh's long gone, and you're not going to see a Honda on a machine of this caliber. So they're actually using a Chinese engine. This is I keep wanting to say Linhai, but it's one of those Chinese engine manufacturers that sells under other people's brand names. In fact, what's happened, it seems to be across the industry, including generators and pressure washers and all these other things that people buy lawnmowers, is that they're using Chinese engines and they're selling them under their own brand name. And the company who builds the machine also provides parts and warranty support. Whereas back in the old days, you'd be getting your engine parts from Briggs or Tecumseh or Kohler, and you'd get the machine parts from, MTD or Toro or whoever. And as someone who spent his entire childhood obsessed with and constantly servicing small engines, I did have some major hesitation with this. I had a problem with the Chinese engine because I felt that if Americans do one thing well, if they do anything well, in barring all other industries that we're involved in, we build great small engines, or at least we used to. So I would always buy an American engine machine, as a matter of course. But I realize now that the Chinese have been building these Honda clone motors for so long, they've pretty much got the design and design changes ironed out, and the reliability, depending on who the engine is built by and who is importing it, has more to do with the overall durability and quality than anything else. So this engine was built specifically for Toro. It is the exact same Honda clone motor that you'll find on any other machine. The difference being Toro has specified, for some reason, an alloy or aluminum valve cover. I don't know why that is. It doesn't make it any more durable, I'm sure, but Toro. So here's how it works. When you're a manufacturer looking to bring an engine from China, or buy a truckloads of engines from a Chinese manufacturer, you can tell the manufacturer what sort of quality level you're looking for, and the Chinese manufacturers will produce to that level. That's how it works. So if for example MTD is building machines at a lower price point under the Craftsman name, they're not going to spend the extra money for, I can't think of anything specific that might be different, but they're going to be getting a lower grade engine than the Toro or whatever. And that's usually how Chinese OEMing works, is you pay for the quality level that you want for your product. There are snowblowers made under a couple of other unknown brand names that you can buy online. I can't think of the name. It's like Mastercraft or something like that, or like Joe's. I think it's like Joe's Super Snowblowers or something, some weird name. And those are the ones to avoid. Those are the ultra Chinese snowblowers. They're not going to have the higher quality engines, driveline components, bearings, and all those other things that make a machine last or fail within the first 10 to 15 years. So anyway, I just got using this machine for the first time in a heavy, wet snowstorm, and it did a fantastic job. I did a terrible job because I was in a rush, but I did this driveway, and I also ran a path around the house. This machine broke through everything I put it through. It did not. And it was struggling. Not struggling. No. That's not the word I'm looking for. It was definitely under a load. It was chugging like a freight train at one point. And what I do at that point to avoid the risk, but I really wanted to. I wanted to put it through its paces. I wanted to see what it could do. But by doing what I did, you do run the risk of burning out belts, and of course, loading the motor, loading up the drivetrain and wearing it out faster. But I really wanted to see what it was capable of, and at no point did it ever stall and I ran it through like those heavy duty, that ridge right there. Oh, I powered it right through that, right through. Boom! It just did it. About halfway, and then I'm going to back off a little bit, so I put it in reverse. And so what you're supposed to do is when the machine starts to lug, like it was doing, you're supposed to back off a little bit and go back at it, and just don't let it stay in that state, because that's when you're going to start wearing everything out. But it went right through it, and I know that if I still had my 65 Gilson, it would have done the same thing. But what can I say? I mean, it's a snowblower. It's well built. Now, one of the biggest things that sold me on this machine, other than of course, the product reviews are pretty good, but also the overall quality feel of this machine. aside from going to a store and testing out every snowblower to see what it can do, which they won't let you do, I've asked, you really kind of have to use your gut and just kind of look the machine over, play with the levers, roll the machine around the store a little bit and see how it feels. Because feel often communicates things that you can't read in a spec sheet or in a product review. You have to kind of just when you feel something that was built well, you just know it. And I'm going to start off with the chassis. So Toro's chassis, unlike all of the others, consists of a unitized boxed frame that isn't bolted together like every other snowblower on the market. You'll notice that the side panels actually are shaped in such a way that they attach to the outermost part of the barrel housing, and they're welded. At least it's not a continuous, what they call laying dimes, but it is welded on both sides. So what that does is it basically forms a stiff, unitized chassis that will never fall apart, will never flex and bend and break. And you'll notice that some of the lower-end snowblowers, I mean, even the more expensive ones, they definitely consist of two distinct housing sections that are bolted in the middle. What that translates to is when you put pressure down on this handle, the chassis doesn't flex at all, at least not really any detectable amount. So you do that to an MTD. Go to Home Depot right now or Lowe's and take a look at an MTD, a Husqvarna, a Cub Cadet, and you'll do the same thing. And you'll notice the entire machine flexes in the middle, and it just feels kind of wimpy in comparison. Toro, I think Toro has an exclusive patent on this chassis. I'm not really sure how that works, but only Toros seem to have that level of rigidity. And in real terms, what that really means is that this machine can probably go through a lot more abuse, and all the driveline components will stay in line. You won't lose belt tension if the machine goes over a bump or something like that. Everything stays put, no matter what you put it through. The other thing that I noticed about the Toro is the chute control, and I've used this in real life, and it really works well, even when there's snow flying out of this thing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. The chute control is concise. It stays put. It doesn't flop around when you're running the machine. I do believe that these cables will eventually become a problem, and they may require replacement or lubrication. That's just me being completely honest about it. But it has one of the best chute controls. I think it's a little confusing, actually. Depending on, like, if I need to make a quick adjustment, I'm used to having two different levers, one to swing it back and forth and one to adjust the chute height or the angle. Whereas this one, this is your chute angle, this is your direction. So anyway, and it locks into position very nicely. Whereas some of the machines I've used in my past didn't really do such a great job of locking in, and they'd constantly wander, and sometimes they'd freeze up. This one it's pretty concise. It does the job. The speed selector. Now, this is the only complaint I have, actually. The speed selector, it feels good and solid. It gives you a nice, solid feel, where some of the other machines, don't even get me started. The one problem I have with this machine, now this is the only complaint I have, and I have made all the correct adjustments to the drive pulley and everything, or drive wheel, this thing here. I've made all the adjustments. I've read the manual. I know how it works. I just can't get it slow enough. The machine is too fast. It moves too fast. So if you're trying to, clean up a small area, or you're between cars or something, and you can't move the cars for whatever reason, you're more likely to hit something because it wants to just move. What they should do is they should gear it down a little bit. You know, in a future product improvement, if Toro is watching this video, you know, you really need to gear it down a little bit. It's just too fast. But from the store I got it from, and they are supposed to set it up correctly, but they clearly did not. What I found was it was out of adjustment from the get-go, because I think it was in first gear, quote unquote gear, it was actually going in reverse. And you had to kind of fiddle with it. So all you've got to do is basically remove this this clip here and move this threaded fixture up and down on that shaft, and that's how you adjust the drive wheel position. But I mean, it runs great. It starts up. Look at how easy it starts. So just choke it, about three primes, and just that's it. That's all it takes. Just fires right up. But anyway. So I'm very happy with this machine. It does eat snow like it's supposed to. I'm very pleased with it. And I'm hoping I never have to buy another one. One other thing. Every snowblower should have the ability to freewheel. And this one is no exception. The problem that I find is that when you pull the pin on the wheel, on the axle, you have to slide the wheel inward a little bit so you can put the pin back in so the wheel doesn't come off. But it rubs up against the chassis when you do that. You know, there should have been a more thought out approach to engaging the freewheel function, but freewheeling is good for transporting it, like if you're wheeling it around a garage in the summertime. You know, like I'm going to store this down in the basement when the time comes. But yeah, that's just one little pet peeve of mine. It should freewheel a little better. Oh yeah, one other thing too. The belly pan is made of plastic. On most machines, they're made out of metal. You know, I could go either way on that. The metal pans tend to get bashed up and they end up rusting anyway. Plastic one is going to break if it gets hit. If it hits something, a boulder or what have you, it'll crack and you'll have to buy a new panel. But you know, just thinking, I'm trying to picture how this machine is going to age and what's going to fail first. I have no qualms about the engine. I have done my first oil change on it, so that should be good to go. And it even includes a little chute unclogger tool thing, little ice chopper. I think it's like every machine has that these days. It's like a standard feature now. But you'll get one on your Toro. Alright, well that's all for now. Thank you all for watching. And hopefully this video helps somebody make a decision when they buy their next snowblower.